Okay, this is definitely going to be an unfinished, unvarnished thought. Um, but there's this idea that when you have something that you are ashamed of, something that it doesn't have to be a big thing, but it's just something that you would say have a lot of resistance to owning up to the person that it affected, right? Um, that if you hold that in and you don't own up to it, you don't let out how it makes you feel that you did it, then it's going to perpetuate. You're going to continue. You're going to be stuck in this loop of of behavior that results in that 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 thing that you don't like, right? This is something that I got from Joe Hudson. That how when you feel shame about something, you just keep doing it, and a very common example of that would be if you are ashamed of something like how you eat, like, oh, I'm eating ice cream again and I can't stop myself, and you beat yourself up about it, you feel shame about it, but then you keep doing it. So shame itself isn't a good way of discouraging a behavior. In fact, it perpetuates it. Okay. So the lesson there that I get from it is that in order to get out of that shame cycle, you actually have to let some feelings out and open up about it. And this is just something that I've been playing with, but apologizing for it. Now this is where it gets different. You don't have to do it to the person, okay? You don't have to. You don't have to go face to face with them and do this big outpouring about how bad you feel or something like that, because in a way that's just kind of more shame. And anyway, you don't have to do it. You can access those feelings by doing it in your imagination. And this is, it's a funny thing to say. Maybe I could say it's a vulnerable thing to say because it sounds weird. Okay. So I've been doing these morning sessions where I go into my garage and this is like first thing in the morning, and I put on some music, and I've got a wrestling mat that I put down, and I let out a lot of, we'll say, wild and crazy energy, where I do things that are, movements and sounds and things like that that are not socially acceptable. I'm trying to open up. I'm trying to break out of rigid patterns, okay? So I'm doing everything that I can. I'm just like, and I'm trying to access more of myself, that kind of thing. So I do that for a while, and I work up a sweat, and it's great. It's actually really fantastic. And at the end here, this morning, I was just really exhausted, laid down, and I put on a song on repeat that was just, I would say, kind of an emotionally stirring song. And so I got this song on repeat, and what I did was I imagined my son, my oldest son, and he's 4.5. And, as a parent, there's absolutely, God, there's no shortage of ways that you feel like you're fucking up. It's just like every day there's, a dozen ways where you're like, God damn it, that's fucked up, and it's setting it, this isn't necessarily literally true here, but it feels like you're setting in stone that fuck up. Like you're putting it into your kid, and then they're gonna carry it with them for the rest of their life or something like that. So anyway, I imagined, being face to face with my son, and basically trying to feel those feelings of like, oh God, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And it's such an immediate response from me emotionally, where it's just, I just have to think I'm sorry, and then I'm crying, and then it's just a lot of crying. And I would do that, or I did that this morning, kind of over and over, where I would have a new thought about something that I felt bad about, that I felt guilty about, and I would apologize for it. And it's funny because, I grew up very, I don't know, I not in a religious household. So I don't have the religious, foundation that, some people might be able to relate to this, like, oh, you're asking for forgiveness from, God. Like it's effectively in that zone. And, now I'm at a place where I used to look at religion kind of with scorn, or I just kind of looked down at it, like, and now I'm like, okay, I'm able to appreciate a lot of the wisdom there, and how it is giving a framework for getting you to certain states. Doesn't mean it's the only way to get there, but it's a way. And so in this case, I'm asking for forgiveness, and I'm letting these feelings out. And I did it over and over, over the course of like half an hour of crying, and then I was able to access a much more calm, stable state, especially in my imagination, where I could, imagine my son and not immediately just lose it. Anyway, in my head, it was sort of like what I was imagining was, or the way I conceptualized this was that as long as I was unable to have a stable conception of my son, and as long as I could, God, how do I put it? Basically, if I was immediately breaking down just from the thought of like, oh, I'm sorry, that, well then, okay, I've got a lot more to get out. And as I got more out, then I was more able to just be open and present with the thought of my son without having all of these feelings come up. So I was kind of getting through them. I was getting them out, So the process this morning was, I was in this kind of physically exhausted state. I'd worked out a lot of this just kind of random, weird, wiggly energy. And then I was able to, in the dark in my garage, and at 5:30 in the morning or whatever, able to imagine going through these apologies and being vulnerable in that way, and letting these feelings out. And it was a fantastic way to get access to things that I've been developing ways of getting there and finding new ways. And one of the ways that I found that works really well is with the help of cannabis. And then I became very into that tool of as a way of getting emotional access. And now I feel like I've gotten past a reliance on that to get there. And so I know this is rambling and all over the place, but it's definitely a win for me to know that, oh, I can do a practice like this. I'm experimenting, I'm playing around, I'm figuring it out, but I'm getting access to things in a very sustainable, healthy way. And I feel great right now. Like any time, I feel like a lot of people can relate. A lot of people who are able to cry can relate to the feeling of being lighter after a good cry. But I also know there's a lot of people out there that don't actually know what that feels like, and they're actually just carrying around that weight all of the time. So anyway, I felt like I landed on a more stable format for me to access these feelings and get something out. And so going back to how I started the video of if you're feeling shame about something and perpetuate, and that makes you perpetuate it. Here I was thinking of ways that I wasn't perfect towards my child. As a parent, I'm making mistakes, and I need a way to, I need a practice that allows me to feel the feelings associated with that and move out of a state of shame so that I don't keep doing it to them for the rest of their life. Anyway, that's how I'm thinking about it. Turn around. Because I do care, and I don't want to continue to do those things that would make me feel that way. So getting the feelings out, and then I can be in just a more calm, loving, present state with my whole family, not just my son. It happens to be that my son is a very easy portal into my emotions. Like, it's just a really easy way for me to connect to a deeper, more tender state where I can let feelings like that out. Another one is my dad. It's just if I imagine my dad and saying I'm sorry to him, okay, that's gonna do the same kind of thing. Yeah, it's it's a great thing. I know if you are not, if this sounds crazy to you or weird or whatever, that's fine. That's great. But man, I gotta say, to me, this is a huge win. It's a way to practice and get better at having a fuller experience of life, and making my experience of life more or closer to reality, as opposed to going through all of these filters in my head that make it seem less grand and wonderful than it actually is. That's the way I view it anyway. That if I'm in a funk, that's a filter inside of me. It doesn't actually reflect what's going on the outside. And so as I do work like this, those filters get lifted and life gets better. My perception of it gets better. So wow, it's a funny thing, because I'm effectively finding ways to do these like emotional workouts now in the morning, and it's fantastic, and I feel great, and it feels like mine. It feels like a process that I am discovering in real time, and each time I do it, I learn something, and I get something new from that. So all right, I'll leave it there. Rambly one and weird. So that's the norm, right? All right, see ya.